Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1425A, and today's date is November 14th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, The Latest Report Indicates the 1% Got Wealthier After 2008. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Bix Weir. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to the video, or you can come over to the website x22report.com site or the newsentinel.com site. All you need to do is scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there. You can play it right on the site, or you can go to Steemit. That's steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, since the financial crisis of 2008, we know the central banks around the world, they've been pushing stimulus, and none of this currency hit the people. What it did hit was the 1%, the very, very wealthy, and it hit those people on Wall Street, and they kind of made out. Now, we've been reporting on this and how these individuals are getting wealthier and wealthier, how they've been stealing the assets around the world, and the bottom half of the people in every single country is getting poorer and poorer. Well, Total Chris released its latest annual global wealth report, and it traditionally lays out what has become the single biggest reason for the recent anti-establishment revulsion. Credit Suisse shows year after year, mostly recently 1 year ago, the number of people who control roughly half the global net worth, or 45.9% of the roughly 280 trillion in household wealth, is declining progressively relative to the total population of the world. And in 2017, the number of people who were worth more than 1 million was just 36 million, roughly 0.7% of the world's population of adults. On the other hand of the pyramid, some 3.5 billion adults had a net worth of less than 10,000, accounting for just about 7.6 trillion in household wealth. And in between is the so-called global middle class, which is about 1.4 billion people whose rising anger at the status quo made the Brexit and Trump possible. Now, the report authors write, there is just one group to have benefited from the Fed's post-crisis monetary policies. And they calculated this out, and the top 1% of global wealth holders started the millennium with 45.5% of all household wealth. This share was about the same until 2006, then fell to about 42.5% 2 years later. The downward trend reversed after 2008, and the share of the top 1% has been on an upward path ever since passing the 2000 level in 2013 and achieving new peaks every year thereafter. Now, according to their latest estimates, the top 1% own about 50.1% of all household wealth in the world. For the first time ever, the richest 1% now controls over half, or 50.1% of global wealth. And this happened after the Fed started to push their stimulus policies. The ECB pushing their stimulus policies. And we can see where all of this wealth flowed into. It didn't hit the everyday person. It didn't hit the middle class. It didn't hit the poor. It didn't hit any of these individuals. And we see right now that everything that we've been saying all along, where the wealthier were getting wealthier, and there's a disconnect between those in government at the 1%, the middle class, and the poor. And you can see why the middle class and the poor are sitting here going, hey, what about us? And these are the people that are getting hit the hardest. But those individuals on top, and if we go back in time, we can see all those countries that had revolutions, all those countries that went after royalty. Well, this is what happened. The classes separated, and the top tier, they didn't care what was going on with the middle or the bottom tier. They were out of touch. That is what is happening right now. Now, the Fed has issued a subprime warning because they're realizing there's major problems in the debt area, and this is the household debt area. Now, remember, debt is their product. but they don't want everyone to declare bankruptcy. They don't want countries to declare bankruptcy. They want that middle ground where you're stuck in this debt hole. You just have enough to pay it, but you can't really get anywhere unless you take on some more debt and you have enough just to pay that off. They never want people to go bankrupt because they lose out. They don't want countries to default. They lose out. They like that middle ground where they have total control. And what we're seeing right now is that U.S. credit card debt once again rose above $1 trillion, and it was dropping for a while, but we can see that people have been using their credit cards once again. Why? Because people have been losing their jobs. People have gotten part-time jobs. And when we look at the latest quarterly household debt and credit report by the New York Fed, the debt rose to a new record high in the second quarter. And this is on the back of mortgages, auto, student, and credit card debt. Now, the mortgages, we're not adding on that many new mortgages, but what we are adding on are auto, student, and credit card debt. Aggregate household debt increased for the 13th consecutive quarter, rising by $116 billion to an all-time high. As of September 30th, 2017, total household indebtedness was $12.96 trillion, an increase of $605 billion from a year ago, an equivalent to 66% of U.S. GDP, versus a high around 87% in early 2009. After years of deleveraging in the wake of the 2007-2009 recession, household debt has risen more than 16.2% since 2013. And what we're seeing here is that auto loans, they grew by $23 billion. Credit card balances increased by $24 billion. Student loans saw an increase of $13 billion. And today, people are in so much debt, it is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason for this is because people are using debt to get by, because people aren't making enough. People have part-time jobs. People lost their jobs. There's a lot of people that are not in the labor force anymore. They want a job, but they just can't find it. And there's a lot of poor individuals that are living off the government and using debt to survive. And we see right now that the central banks, the government, they've been pushing this policy for a very long time, and we're going to be running into trouble. The Fed has cautioned that there are over 23 million consumers who hold subprime auto loans, and they're seeing the delinquency rates start to move up. Outstanding student loan debt grew by $13 billion and stood at $1.357 trillion as of September 30th, 2017, up from $1.344 trillion in the second quarter, and 11.2% of aggregate student loan debt was 90 plus days delinquent or in default in the third quarter of 2017. Now, if we look at the automobile industry, we see delinquency rates among auto finance lenders are considerably higher and rising, especially for these subprime borrowers. This is why the Fed is out there giving us this warning that there might be problems ahead. Now, we can see that the economy, and we've been looking at many different economic sectors, and each one is starting to fail. And when they all start to fail, they're going to affect other sectors. And when those sectors start to fail, we're going to have a huge problem where the entire system comes down. Now, we've been talking about the Treasury yields and the yield curve and the flattening yield curve. And what we're seeing right now is that the yield curve, well, it hit new cycle flats, the flattest since 2007. And the last two times the yield curve was this flat, the U.S. economy was in a recession. And if we go back to 2007, this is when it began. This is when everything started to go south. The Fed started to raise the rates back in 2004 through 2005 to 2006, and the yield curve started to flatten. So the Fed said, we better reverse this, and they started to lower the rates. But it was too late. The damage was already done, and the financial conditions fell apart. We see the same thing happening once again. They were raising rates, and the yield curve was starting to flatten, And they stopped it because they realized if they continued with this, they would crash the economy. So they held off. Even though unemployment is coming down, they're telling us the economy is doing great, the stock market is at all-time highs. Yes, it's up and down a little bit, but it's still at all-time highs. The same thing that we saw back in 2008 when it was at 14,000 points. They realize if there's no event or there's no one else to blame and they just raise the rates and the system falls, they're going to be blamed. This is why they stopped it. And while this is all happening, we can see they're trying to figure out a way out of this, but there is no way out of this. The problem is they back themselves into a corner. They can't raise rates. They can't lower rates. They have to keep stimulus continually on. They can't stop it. The ECB has extended it to 2018. They can't raise rates. They are stuck in this manipulated, illusionary recovery. Anything they do at this point can trigger the entire system to come down. Other countries realize this. We know that Saudi Arabia right now, they're pivoting towards China. And basically what they're doing is they're cleaning house. They're going to be moving away from the petrodollar. They're going to be moving towards China, moving towards Russia. We're going to see Iran is already doing this. Iraq is doing this. Syria will be doing this. We see India is going to be joining the One Belt, One Road. Many countries are signing on, and we can see that it's only a matter of time. And what this tells everyone is that you have some time to prepare if you haven't prepared. If you have been preparing, you need to continue because this is not going to improve. We're in limbo world right now where the central bank really can't do much. But one little thing can bring the whole entire system down. That's what they're afraid of. They're very nervous that they will lose control because they want control of the economy coming down. They've had control in the past. They were able to blame other individuals, other groups, other corporations. They never took the blame. And we can see that they're looking at the entire situation and saying, well, this time we used stimulus. We were running the economy. We're the ones who said, okay, we're going to create currency and we're going to make the economy better. So this time it falls on the central bank, the Fed, the ECB. And this is what they're worried about. This is why they've been holding off on doing anything, because they know one wrong move can bring the whole entire system down. They need that event. And this is their problem. So eventually what's going to happen is something will kick it off. And the system will come down. And the central bank will be blamed. Unless they can do something to distract everyone. No matter what, the system is coming down. Get prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.